The escape pod screamed through the atmosphere, trailing fire and smoke across the alien sky. Inside, Daehyun gripped the crash harness with white knuckles as alarms blared around him. His research vessel was gone, torn apart by a cascade failure he still didn't understand. All he could do now was hold on and pray the pod's heat shields would last long enough. The impact threw him forward against the restraints. Metal groaned and buckled. Then silence. Daehyun sat in the darkness for a moment, breathing hard, before the emergency lights flickered on. He was alive. The pod had landed in what looked like a forest clearing, surrounded by strange purple trees with silver leaves that caught the light of a yellow sun. He triggered the emergency release and stumbled out onto soft grass. The air was breathable, thank God. His suit's sensors confirmed it matched Earth normal almost perfectly. Daehyun took a cautious breath without his helmet and smiled. At least something had gone right today. The smile didn't last long. Through the trees, he heard voices, then movement. Within seconds, he was surrounded by armed figures in sleek blue armor, their weapons trained on him with unsettling precision. Daehyun raised his hand slowly, his translator earpiece already working to parse their language. But it wasn't the weapons that made him freeze. It was their faces. Every single one of them was a woman. Not just the soldiers surrounding him, but he could see others now, moving between the trees in the distance. All women. Every single one. The lead soldier stepped forward, her expression a mix of shock and confusion. She spoke rapidly into a communication device while keeping her weapon steady. Daehyun's translator caught fragments of the conversation. Unknown species, male characteristics, confirmed biological male, requesting immediate support, male characteristics, confirmed? What kind of place had he crashed on? Within minutes, a transport vehicle arrived, hovering silently above the ground. The soldiers gestured for him to board, their weapons never wavering. Daehyun complied. He was in no position to argue, and they hadn't shot him yet, which he took as a good sign. The journey to the city took less than an hour. Daehyun pressed his face to the window, watching in amazement as they flew over the alien landscape. The planet was beautiful. Rolling hills gave way to farmland, then suburbs, and finally a massive city of crystalline towers that caught the sunlight and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the sky. And everywhere, only women. Women working in the fields. Women driving vehicles. Women walking through parks with children. Not a single man anywhere. They landed on a platform near the city center and escorted him into a large government building. The architecture was stunning, all flowing curves and natural light. They led him through corridors filled with officials and workers, all of whom stopped to stare at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to alarm. Finally, they entered a large chamber where 5 women sat behind a curved desk. The central figure was older, perhaps in her 60s, with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She studied Daehyun for a long moment before speaking. "I am Premier Hannah," his translator relayed. "You are the first male humanoid to set foot on this planet in recorded history. Tell me, who are you and where you come from?" Daehyun cleared his throat. "My name is Daehyun Kim. I'm a xenobiologist from Earth, a planet about 40 light years from here. My ship suffered a catastrophic failure during a survey mission. The escape pod was all I could reach before the main vessel was destroyed." The council members exchanged glances. One of them, a stern-looking woman with military bearing, leaned forward. "You claim to be a scientist. What were you studying?" "Habitable worlds and their ecosystems," Daehyun replied. "We're always looking for planets that might support human colonies or have interesting biological features. Your planet wasn't on our charts." This was supposed to be a routine scan of the system. Premier Hannah nodded slowly. "And these humans you speak of, they have both males and females?" Like the ancient records describe? Yes, Daehyun said, confused. About 50-50. Is that unusual? A ripple of whispers went through the chamber. The premier raised her hand for silence. Young man, our people have existed as a single-gender species for over 8,000 years. We reproduce through biogenesis technology that combines genetic material from two mothers. Males are something we've only read about in fragmentary databases from extinct civilizations we've studied. Until today, we believed they were largely theoretical. Daehyun felt his legs go weak. 8,000 years? An entire civilization without men? It was impossible. It defied everything he knew about mammalian biology and evolutionary pressures. How? He asked. How is that possible? The military woman, who Daehyun would later learn was Commander Yuna, stood abruptly. Premier, with respect, this is a security matter. We know nothing about this individual or his intentions. He could be carrying pathogens our medical technology cannot handle. He could be a scout for an invasion force. We should quarantine him immediately until we understand the risks. Commander Yuna raises valid concerns, another council member said. But he also represents a unique opportunity for scientific study. We could learn so much about biological diversity and alternative evolutionary paths. The debate continued for nearly an hour. Daehyun stood there, exhausted and overwhelmed, as they discussed his fate. Finally, Premier Hannah made her decision. You will be granted provisional asylum while we verify your story and determine what to do with you. You will be assigned quarters in a secure facility and provided with a cultural liaison to help you understand our society. In return, you will submit to medical examination and answer our questions honestly. Do you agree to these terms? Yes, Daehyun said immediately. Thank you. I have no intention of causing trouble. I just want to repair my ship and eventually return home. The premier nodded. We will discuss the possibility of repairing your vessel in time. For now, you need rest. Guards will escort you to your quarters. As they led him away, Daehyun caught sight of a window overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the crystal towers in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere down there, millions of people were going about their lives, completely unaware that their understanding of the universe had just been challenged by the arrival of a single lost explorer. He thought about his family back on Earth. His mother would be worried sick when the ship was reported missing. His sister would probably organize search parties. They might never know what happened to him, might never learn that he'd survived and found himself on a world unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. The quarters they assigned him were comfortable, almost luxurious. A bed, a desk, a bathroom with running water, a window that looked out over the city. But as Daehyun sat on the edge of the bed, the reality of his situation finally hit him. He was alone, 40 light years from home, on a planet where he was a biological impossibility, where his very existence challenged thousands of years of history and understanding that he was the only man in the entire world. Daehyun woke to sunlight streaming through the window and a young woman standing at the foot of his bed, studying him with the detached curiosity of a scientist examining a new specimen. He sat up quickly, pulling the blanket closer. Good morning, the woman said through his translator. I am Subin, your assigned cultural liaison. I specialize in xenanthropology, though I never imagined I would have the opportunity to study an actual alien, especially one so biologically unusual. I'm not an alien, Daehyun said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. I'm human. You're the aliens from my perspective. Subin tilted her head, considering this. An interesting point. Perspective shapes reality more than we often acknowledge. I've brought you breakfast. We weren't certain what you could safely consume. So the medical team analyzed your biological samples and created something compatible with your digestive system. The breakfast was surprisingly good, though nothing tasted quite right. The bread was too sweet, the fruit too tart, but it was food, and he was hungry. Subin sat across from him, a tablet in her hands, firing off questions faster than he could chew. How does sexual reproduction work exactly? Are there psychological differences between human males and females? What age do humans reach sexual maturity? How are gender roles determined in your society? Do males and females have different capabilities? What happens when the two genders disagree? Daehan held up a hand. Slow down. These are complicated questions, and some of them don't have simple answers. Then give me complicated answers, Subin said, leaning forward. I have time. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Mornings were spent answering Subin's endless questions about human biology and society. Afternoons, she would take him on supervised walks through the city, explaining Varenian culture while trying to keep curious onlookers at a safe distance. The city was incredible. Clean streets, efficient public transport, parks everywhere. Crime was almost non-existent. The government was democratic, with representatives elected based on merit and policy rather than personality. Resources were distributed fairly. Healthcare and education were universal rights. It sounds perfect, Daehan said during one walk. Perfect is subjective, Subin replied. We have our problems. Disagreements over resource allocation, debates about technological development, concerns about cultural stagnation. But we solve them through discussion and compromise, not conflict. Humans could learn from that, Daehan admitted, but not everyone was happy with his presence. During a visit to a government facility, Commander Yuna confronted them in a hallway. Her expression was cold and hostile. Premier Hannah may trust you, she said to Daehan, but I do not. Your very existence is dangerous. Already, people are asking questions about our past, about why we evolved this way. You represent chaos and instability. I'm just a scientist who crashed here by accident, Daehan said calmly. I'm not trying to destabilize anything. Intent does not matter, Yuna replied. Impact does. And your impact is already being felt. She turned to Subin. You spend too much time with him. People are talking. They say you're becoming sympathetic to alien concepts. Subin's expression hardened. I'm doing my job, Commander. Understanding requires empathy. Perhaps if you tried it, you would see him as a person rather than a threat. Yuna left without another word. But Daehan could feel her eyes on his back as they walked away. The tension came to a head during a public forum organized by the council. Citizens could attend and ask Daehan questions directly. The auditorium was packed. Thousands of faces all focused on him as he stood on the stage. The questions started simple. What was Earth like? How did human cities compare to Varenian ones? What kind of technology did humans have? But then they got harder. Tell us about human history, someone called out. How did your species develop? Were males and females always equal? Daehan took a deep breath. No, he admitted. For most of human history, we weren't equal at all. Males dominated most societies. Women were often treated as property, denied education, denied rights. Even now, in my time, we're still working toward true equality. A shocked silence filled the auditorium. He could see horror on many faces, disgust on others. But he continued, knowing he had to be honest. Our history is full of violence and injustice. Wars fought over resources, ideologies, and simple hatred. Slavery, genocide, terrible things. But we're learning. Slowly, painfully, we're becoming better. We've built a society that values individual rights, that works toward equality. that explores the stars not to conquer, but to understand. And you think this makes you worthy of our trust? Someone shouted. You come from a culture built on oppression and violence. I come from a culture that learned from its mistakes, Daehyun replied. That's what makes us human. We're not perfect. We never will be. But we try. Every day, we try to be better than we were. The forum ended in chaos, with people arguing on all sides. Subin escorted him out quickly, her expression troubled. You should have lied, she said quietly. Made humanity sound more noble. No, Daehyun said. They deserved the truth. Besides, what good would lies do? They would find out eventually. That night, lying in bed, Daehyun wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. But the next morning, something unexpected happened. A woman approached him in the gardens outside his quarters. She was holding a small child by the hand. I saw you at the forum, she said nervously. My daughter has been asking about you. She wanted to meet you. I hope that's okay. The little girl looked up at him with huge, curious eyes. Are you really different inside? She asked. Daehyun knelt down to her level. Yes, I'm different. But we're the same in the ways that matter. I can feel happy and sad. I can learn things. I can love my family. He looked up at the mother. Do you have family? Yes, the woman said. My wife and our daughter. On Earth, I have a mother and a sister, Daehyun said to the child. And I love them very much. Just like your mothers love you. That's what family means. People who care about each other, no matter what they look like or where they come from. The little girl smiled. That's nice. I like that. Her mother's eyes were wet with tears. Thank you, she whispered, for treating her like it was normal to be curious. As they walked away, Daehyun noticed something. A camera drone had been recording the interaction. By evening, the footage had spread across the planetary network. He watched as news commentators analyzed the brief exchange, debating what it meant. Subin came to his quarters that night, her expression thoughtful. You're changing minds, she said. Not everyone's, maybe not even most people's, but some. That mother spoke to a journalist. She said you helped her understand the difference doesn't have to mean danger. I didn't do anything special, Daehyun said. You treated a child with kindness, Subin replied. You showed vulnerability. You admitted your culture's flaws while defending its progress. These are not small things. She sat down across from him, her earlier clinical detachment gone. I've been studying you like you were a specimen. I apologize for that. It was easier than acknowledging that you're a person who is scared and alone, far from home, trying to navigate an impossible situation with grace. I'm terrified, Daehyun admitted. Every moment. But what else can I do? Break down? Give up? I have to believe I'll find a way home eventually. And while I'm here, I might as well try to build bridges instead of walls. Subin nodded. Tomorrow, I'd like to show you something. The historical archives. There are some things I think you should see. Things that might explain why our society is the way it is. What kind of things? Answers, she said quietly. And questions. So many questions. The historical archives were housed deep beneath the capital city, in climate-controlled vaults that preserved thousands of years of Varenan knowledge. Subin led Daehyun through corridors lined with data crystals and ancient physical books. Their pages protected by force fields that prevented decay. We pride ourselves on preserving our history, Subin explained. Every discovery, every advancement, every cultural shift is documented here. But recently, I've been finding gaps. Inconsistencies in the early records. What kind of inconsistencies? Daehyun asked. She pulled up a holographic display showing a timeline of Varenan civilization. Our official history begins 8,000. 214 years ago, with what we call the Genesis era. It's when our modern biogenesis technology was developed. Before that, records become fragmentary and unclear. Daehyun studied the timeline. That's not unusual. Most civilizations have periods where historical records are sparse or lost. True, Subin agreed. But look at this. She expanded a section of the timeline, revealing genetic data. These are samples from our oldest preserved biological archives. And here, in the earliest samples, there are traces of something our scientists couldn't explain. Fragmentary genetic sequences that don't match current Varenan biology. Daehyun leaned closer, his xenobiology training kicking in. His eyes widened as he recognized the patterns. That's a Y chromosome, or fragments of one. Subin nodded gravely. We didn't know what we were looking at until you arrived. But now, with your genetic data for comparison, it's unmistakable. Our people weren't always single gender. The implications hit Daehyun like a physical blow. What happened? Where did the males go? That's what we need to find out, Subin said. I've been given special authorization to access the deepest archives, the ones that are normally restricted. Will you help me? They spent the next 3 days diving into ancient records, piecing together a story that had been buried for millennia. What they found was horrifying. 8,000 years ago, a plague had swept across the planet. It was called the Extinction Plague, and the fragmented records they discovered. It targeted a specific genetic sequence found only in males, attacking their immune systems and reproductive organs. Within 3 generations, 99% of all males were dead. The remaining population, facing extinction, poured every resource into developing artificial reproduction technology. The biogenesis chambers were created in a desperate race against time. They succeeded, but barely. The last naturally born male died 200 years after the plague began. This is incredible, Daehyun breathed. And terrible. Your entire civilization rebuilt itself from the edge of extinction. But why was this buried? Subin asked. Why don't we learn about this in school? Why is it hidden in restricted archives? They found the answer in a set of psychological reports from the post-plague era. The trauma had been so severe, the loss so complete, that survivors couldn't cope with the memories. Over generations, they chose to forget. They rewrote history, removed the painful past, and created a new narrative where they had always been single-gender. Collective amnesia, Daehyun said softly. It's happened on Earth, too, after terrible events. Sometimes people bury trauma so deep, they forget it ever happened. Subin was shaking. We have to tell the Premier. The Council. Everyone needs to know the truth. They brought their findings to Premier Hannah that evening. She listened in silence as they presented their evidence, her expression growing more troubled with each revelation. I need to verify this independently, she said finally. If what you found is true, it will shake the foundations of our society. Premier, Subin said urgently, people deserve to know their real history. We've built our entire identity on incomplete information. I understand, Hannah replied. But we must be careful how we release this. Some will see it as liberation, a deeper understanding of who we are. Others will see it as a threat to everything they believe. Commander Yuna was called to the meeting. She reviewed the evidence with skeptical eyes, but even she couldn't deny what the data showed. This plague, she said slowly. Do we know where it came from? Was it natural or engineered? The records don't say, Subin admitted. That information is either lost or was never documented. We need to find out, Yuna said. Her hostility toward Daehyun seemed to have lessened, replaced by professional concern. If it was engineered, whoever created it might still be out there. The council met in emergency session. The debate was fierce. Some members, including a counselor named Jiwoo, argued for complete transparency. Truth is always better than comfortable lies, Jiwoo said passionately. Our people are strong enough to handle their real history. We've survived for 8,000 years. We can survive knowing how we got here. Others wanted to suppress the information entirely. This will cause panic, one counselor argued. Religious groups will claim it proves their theories about divine punishment. Political extremists will use it to push their agendas. The social cost is too high. Premier Hannah listened to all arguments before making her decision. We will release the information gradually, starting with educational institutions and scholarly communities. We'll provide context, counseling resources, and time for people to process this knowledge. But we will not lie. Not anymore. Daehan felt a wave of relief. But it was short-lived. That night, alarms woke him from sleep. Soo Bin burst into his quarters, her face pale. Something's happened. Commander Yuna's security team detected an energy signature in the northern hemisphere. It matches technology patterns from the pre-plague era. They were rushed to a military command center where Yuna was coordinating a response. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed a structure emerging from beneath the ice in the planet's Arctic region. It's been buried for thousands of years, Yuna explained. But something activated it. We detected the energy spike 12 hours ago. What triggered it? Premier Hana asked, having been summoned as well. Yuna glanced at Daehyun. Our analysis suggests it was your crash landing. The facility has sensors that detect genetic markers. Specifically, Y chromosome genetic markers. The room went silent. Daehyun felt everyone's eyes on him. It was designed to detect males, he said quietly. It's been waiting all this time for a male to arrive. We're assembling a research team to investigate, Yuna said. We need to know what that facility is and what it was designed to do. Premier, I'd like to request that Daehyun accompany the team. His presence might be necessary to access the facility's systems. Hannah looked at Daehyun. It could be dangerous. I understand, Daehyun replied. But if there are answers there about what happened to your people, I want to help find them. The team departed the next morning. Daehyun, Soo Bin, Yuna, and a squad of security personnel flew north in a military transport. The landscape below changed from green forests to frozen tundra, then to vast ice sheets that stretched to the horizon. The facility was enormous. A complex of buildings and towers that had been frozen in ice for millennia. Now, melting ice revealed sleek metal surfaces and glowing energy conduits dot as they approached on foot. A doorway opened in the main structure. It had been waiting for them. Waiting for him? Daehyun took a deep breath and stepped inside. Soo Bin and Yuna close behind. The interior was pristine, preserved perfectly by the ice and the facility's own systems. Lights activated as they walked, illuminating corridors filled with ancient technology dot in the central chamber. They found a data core still functioning after 8,000 years. When Daehyun approached, it activated, projecting holographic text and images. What they saw made Soo Bin gasp and Yuna reach for her weapon dot. It was a record of the plague's creation. Detailed notes from scientists who had deliberately engineered the virus. Their manifesto explained their reasoning. They believed that binary gender led to conflict and inequality. They wanted to create a perfect single-gender civilization. They murdered billions of people, Yuna said, her voice shaking with rage, in the name of some twisted ideology. But that wasn't the worst part. The final entry in the database was a message sent into deep space 8,000 years ago, transmitted to coordinates in a distant star system. Project successful, it read. Template achieved. Awaiting confirmation and further instructions. Daehyun felt ice in his veins. They reported to someone. The plague wasn't just an isolated incident. It was part of something bigger. The return journey to the capital was silent. each person lost in their own thoughts about what they had discovered. Daehyun stared out the transport window, watching the frozen landscape pass below. Somewhere out there in the galaxy, someone had received that message 8,000 years ago. Someone who believed genocide was acceptable in pursuit of their vision of perfection. Commander Yuna was already on her communication device, coordinating with defense forces. Premier Hannah had been briefed and was convening an emergency session of the full planetary council. "We don't even know if they're still out there," Subin said quietly, sitting beside Daehyun. 8,000 years is a long time. Civilizations rise and fall. They could be extinct, or they could be waiting, Daehyun replied. That facility sent a signal when I arrived. Who knows what else it transmitted? His words prophetic. 3 days after their return to the capital, the planetary defense grid detected an object entering the system. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of the largest Varinan spacecraft. And it was headed directly toward their planet. Daehyun stood in the Defense Command Center alongside Premier Hana, Commander Yuna, and the military leadership. On the main display, the alien vessel grew larger as it approached. Its design was elegant but cold, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces. Hailing frequencies open, a communications officer reported. They're transmitting on multiple bands. The main screen flickered and a face appeared. Humanoid, but distinctly alien. Pale skin, large eyes, delicate features. And unmistakably female. I am Speaker Myre of the Kaleri Collective, the alien said, her words translated by the same systems that processed Daehyun's language. 8,000 years ago, we received confirmation that our intervention on your world was successful. We have returned to verify the results and ensure continued compliance with collective principles. Premier Hannah stepped forward. I am Prama Hannah of Varina Prime. What gives you the right to interfere with our civilization? Moray's expression remained neutral. The collective exists to guide species away from the destructive path of binary gender. We have observed countless civilizations tear themselves apart through gender-based conflict. We offer a better way. Your people's transformation was a gift. You call genocide a gift? Yuna demanded. We call it necessary evolution, Myre replied. However, we have detected a contamination. A male humanoid has been identified on your planet. This cannot be permitted. Surrender the individual to us immediately, and your people will be allowed to continue their existence. Daehyun felt everyone's eyes turn to him. He stepped forward before anyone could stop him. I'm the one you're looking for. I'm Daehyun Kim from Earth. I crashed here by accident. I'm not a threat to anyone. Myre studied him with disturbing intensity. You are a specimen of a binary species. Your very presence pollutes the purity we established. You will be taken for study, and measures will be implemented to ensure no further contamination occurs. No, Premier Hannah said firmly. This man is under our protection. He has committed no crime. We will not surrender him to you. Then you leave us no choice, Myre said. You have 12 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will take him by force and implement corrective measures to ensure your civilization's continued purity. The screen went dark. Silence filled the command center. Corrective measures, Jiwoo said, having been summoned to the emergency session. That sounds like a threat. It is a threat, Yuna confirmed. Our long-range scanners show weapon systems on that ship powerful enough to devastate our cities. They're not bluffing. Daehyun's mind raced. I should turn myself in. One life isn't worth risking your entire civilization. Absolutely not, Subin said immediately. We don't negotiate with fanatics who commit genocide. She's right, Premier Hannah agreed. We've learned the truth about our past. We know what they did. If we surrender to them now, we validate their actions, their ideology. We can't do that. Then what do we do? Someone asked. We're not a military power. We don't have weapons capable of fighting a ship like that. Daehyun had an idea. It was desperate and probably wouldn't work, but it was all he had. My ship, or what's left of it. The quantum communicator might still be functional. I could send a distress signal to human space. How far away is the nearest human fleet? Yuna asked. 6 weeks minimum, Daehyun admitted. But the Kalari don't know that. If we can make them think human reinforcements are coming, they might hesitate. A bluff, Jiwoo said. Buy time for what? We can't fight them for 6 weeks. No, Yuna said slowly, her tactical mind working. But we can make it costly enough that they think twice. Daehyun, your species has military experience, correct? Unfortunately, yes, Daehyun said. Humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. I'm not a soldier, but I have access to military databases, tactical information. Then we combine your knowledge with our technology, Yuna said. We've never needed to develop advanced weapons or military tactics. We've had peace for millennia. But our manufacturing capacity is formidable and our technology is sophisticated. Give us your tactical knowledge and we'll build what we need. The next 12 hours were chaos. Daehyun worked with Varinan engineers, adapting human weapons designs to their manufacturing capabilities. They couldn't build anything too complex in the time they had, but they could create basic defensive systems, improvised weapons, guerrilla tactics. Meanwhile, other teams worked on the bluff. They took Daehyun's damaged communicator and jury-rigged it to create false sensor signatures. Ghost fleets that didn't exist. Energy readings suggesting massive human ships approaching from multiple vectors. The real distress signal was sent as well, though Daehyun knew it would be weeks before help could arrive. If help came at all, when the deadline expired, Mireille appeared on screen again. Her expression was cold. Your decision is disappointing but predictable. Contamination often leads to irrationality. We will now proceed with extraction and correction. The Kalari ship launched dozens of landing craft toward the capital city. Yuna's forces, now armed with hastily manufactured weapons based on human designs, prepared defensive positions. Civilians were evacuated to underground shelters. Daehyun stood on the command center balcony, watching the enemy craft descend through the atmosphere. Beside him, Subin gripped his hand. I'm sorry, he said. This is my fault. If I hadn't crashed here, then we would never have learned the truth about our past, she interrupted. We would still be living a lie. And when the Kalari eventually returned, we would have welcomed them as saviors instead of seeing them for the murderers they are. The first landing craft touched down in the city's central plaza. Armored Kalari soldiers emerged, their weapons raised. They were met by Varinan forces using tactics humans had developed over centuries of warfare, cover and concealment. Flanking maneuvers, concentrated fire. The Kalari had expected easy compliance from a peaceful civilization. Instead, they found determined resistance. The first wave was pushed back with casualties on both sides. They're regrouping, Yuna reported. But they're confused. Our tactics don't match their expectations for a single-gender society. Good, Daehyun said. Confusion breeds hesitation. How long can we hold them? Hours, maybe. A day if we're lucky. They have more soldiers, better armor, superior firepower. Eventually, they'll overwhelm us. On the second day of fighting, the Ghost Fleet signals went active. Sensors across the system suddenly detected massive energy signatures approaching from multiple directions. To the Kalari, it looked like a human armada had arrived. Mireille contacted them again, her expression uncertain for the first time. You have allies approaching. This was not indicated in our intelligence. Earth does not abandon its people, Premier Hana said, bluffing with practiced confidence. You face not just Verena Prime, but the full military might of the human alliance. Withdraw now, and we might negotiate peace. For 6 agonizing hours, the Kalari fleet held position, clearly debating their options. Then they resumed the assault with renewed fury. They had seen through the bluff, or decided it didn't matter. The battle for the capital intensified. Daehyun found himself in a defensive position alongside Varenan soldiers, a weapon in his hands for the first time in his life. He was terrified, but he fought anyway, defending the people who had given him asylum. Subin coordinated civilian evacuations, getting thousands of people to safety. Ji-woo kept the government functioning from an underground bunker, ensuring essential services continued despite the chaos above. On the 5th day, when ammunition was running low and defenses were crumbling, something miraculous happened. Real energy signatures appeared at the edge of the system. Not ghosts this time, but actual ships. The Earth Alliance Task Force had arrived, responding to Daehyun's distress signal. They weren't as numerous as the false signals had suggested. Just 5 warships against the Kalari's massive vessel. But they were real, and they were armed. The lead human ship was the ESS Determination, a heavy cruiser with enough firepower to make even the massive Kalari vessel think twice. Admiral Park Hyun-woo appeared on the communication screen, his weathered face showing both relief and determination. This is Admiral Park of the Earth Alliance Defense Force. We received a distress signal from one of our citizens. Verena Prime, what is your status? Premier Hannah stepped forward, exhausted from days of coordinated defense efforts. Admiral, we are under attack by an aggressive force called the Kalari Collective. They demand we surrender our guest and have been conducting military operations against our civilian population. Hyun-woo's expression hardened. The Earth Alliance does not abandon its people, and we do not tolerate attacks on those who shelter them. He turned to someone off-screen. Battle stations. All ships. Defensive formation around the planet. Murray's face appeared on another channel, her composure finally cracking. This is a collective matter. The contamination must be removed. Your interference is not welcome. You attacked a planet under our protection, Hyun-woo replied coolly. You threatened one of our citizens. That makes it our matter. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Take it. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Kalari ship hung in space, its weapons armed, facing the smaller but clearly capable human fleet. Daehyun held his breath, watching from the command center. Had they really come all this way just to start another war? Then, slowly, the Kalari vessel began to pull back. Murray's voice came through one final time. This is not over. The collective does not forget contamination. We will return. We'll be ready, Hyun-woo said simply. The Kalari ship jumped to faster than light travel, disappearing from the system. The battle for Verena Prime was over. The command center erupted in cheers. Subin threw her arms around Daehyun, tears streaming down her face. Even Commander Yuna allowed herself a small smile. But the celebration was brief. The city had been damaged. Thousands were wounded. Hundreds had died defending their world against an enemy they had never imagined facing. The cost of victory was written in the rubble, and Blood. Daehyun met Admiral Hyun-woo in person the next day. The Admiral was older than he had appeared on screen, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. He clasped Daehyun's shoulder in greeting. Good to see you alive, son, Hyun-woo said. When we got your distress signal, we weren't sure what we'd find. The recorded message mentioned a crashed survey ship, but the data you included about this civilization caught some attention at Fleet Command. Thank you for coming, Daehyun said. I know it's a long way from Earth. We don't leave our people behind, the Admiral replied. That's not who we are. Besides, what you've discovered here is significant. A civilization that survived near extinction and rebuilt itself. Technology we've never seen. And now, a potential threat to multiple species. Premier Hannah joined them, along with the full planetary council. The meeting that followed would shape the future of two civilizations. "We owe you a debt," Hannah said to the Admiral. "Your arrival saved our planet." "You saved yourselves," Hien Wu corrected. "My people told me about the defense. A peaceful civilization that had never fought a war, using tactics they learned in days to hold off an invasion. That takes courage most military forces never find." "We learned from Daehyun," Yuna said. She looked different now, less hostile and more thoughtful. He shared knowledge of human military history. Tactics, strategies, things we never needed before. "And hopefully won't need again," Jiwoo added. "But now we know the galaxy is more dangerous than we imagined." The discussion turned to the future. The Kalari had retreated but promised to return. Other species might share their ideology, might target Verena Prime or Earth. Isolation was no longer safe for anyone. "We propose an alliance," Admiral Hien Wu said. "A formal agreement between Earth and Verena Prime. We share technology, knowledge, cultural exchange. We establish an embassy here, and you establish one on Earth. We defend each other against common threats." Premier Hannah looked at her council. Faces that had been uncertain about Daehyun weeks ago now showed determination and hope. "We accept," Hannah said. "It's time Verena Prime joined the galactic community. We've been alone long enough." The reconstruction began immediately. Human engineers worked alongside Verenan builders to repair the damage. Medical teams shared techniques and knowledge. Scientists from both civilizations began collaborative projects. Daehyun found himself in an unexpected position. He was offered a role as the first official cultural liaison between Earth and Verena Prime. Subin would be his counterpart, working to help each civilization understand the other. "Are you sure about this?" he asked her as they walked through a park that was being rebuilt. "It's a lot of responsibility." "I'm sure," she said. "We've learned so much from each other already. Imagine what we could accomplish working together intentionally." They stopped at a memorial being constructed for those who had died in the battle. Names were being carved into stone, a permanent reminder of the cost of freedom. "They died because I crashed here," Daehyun said quietly. "No," Subin replied firmly. "They died fighting against fanatics who believe genocide is acceptable. You didn't cause that. The Kalari did, 8,000 years ago. All you did was help us see the truth and fight back." A familiar voice called out behind them. The mother from the gardens approached with her daughter. The little girl ran up to Daehyun, smiling despite everything that had happened. "You stayed," the child said. "I heard you could go home, but you stayed to help us." "Of course I stayed," Daehyun said, kneeling down. "Friends help each other." The mother looked at him with gratitude. "My wife fought in the defense. She said the tactics you taught saved her unit. Thank you." "For everything?" As they walked away, Daehyun felt something shift inside him. He had spent weeks wanting nothing more than to go home, to return to Earth and his family. And he could now. Admiral Hien Wu had offered him transport on the Determination. But standing here, watching Verenan and human workers rebuilding together, seeing the changes he had helped bring about, he realized something. This was important. More important than his personal comfort. "I'm staying," he told Subin. "At least for a while. There's too much work to do here." She smiled. "I hoped you would say that." The embassy opened 3 months later, a beautiful building that blended human and Verenan architectural styles. Daehyun stood at the opening ceremony, watching as Premier Hannah and Ambassador Lee from Earth signed the formal alliance agreement. His family had been contacted, told he was alive and safe. His mother cried when she saw him on the video call. His sister demanded he visit soon and bring stories. He promised he would, but for now, his place was here. Commander Yuna approached him after the ceremony. She had changed the most of anyone, transformed by the battle from a suspicious security officer to someone who understood that strength came in many forms. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I saw you as a threat when you were actually a gift. You helped us understand ourselves, our past, our potential." "You don't need to apologize," Daehan replied. "You were protecting your people." "I respect that. We're establishing a joint defense force," Yuna continued. "Human and Varenian officers training together. I'd like you to consult on the cultural integration aspects." "I'm not a military person," Daehan protested. "No," Yuna agreed. "But you understand both our peoples. That's more valuable than weapons training." That evening, Daehan stood on the balcony of his new apartment, looking out over the city. Lights were coming back on in repair buildings. People walked the streets without fear. Children played in parks that were growing back. Subin joined him, 2 glasses of wine in her hands. She had introduced him to Varenian alcohol, which was surprisingly good. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. "To bridges between worlds," Daehan replied, clinking his glass against hers. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the crystal towers in shades of gold and red. In orbit above, human and Varenian ships patrolled together, protecting this world that had learned the hard way that isolation was no longer an option. Daehan thought about the journey that had brought him here. A routine survey mission, a catastrophic failure, a crash landing on an impossible world. Discovery, conflict, understanding, war, and finally peace. He had come to this planet as a stranger, a biological anomaly that challenged everything the Varenians believed about themselves. He was leaving as something more, a friend, a bridge, a symbol of what could be accomplished when different peoples chose to learn from each other rather than fear their differences. His communicator chimed. A message from Admiral Hyenwu. The human fleet had detected another signal from deep space. More Kalari ships were moving in their region of the galaxy. The threat wasn't over, but neither were they unprepared. Earth and Varina Prime stood together now. 2 civilizations, different in so many ways, united by the belief that diversity was strength, that cooperation was better than isolation, and that every life had value regardless of its form. Daehan looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Kalari were planning their next move. Other threats lurked in the darkness between worlds.